Nobody, but nobody can roll a cigar like Pedro Luis Cejas. After 44 years, he's the pride of the Partagas factory in Havana. Get him talking about how to shape the perfect Cohiba cigar, how to roll the leaves, and you begin to understand why this is such an exclusive habit. Pedro is an artist. Princes and prime ministers depend on his particular skill. One of his customers, the late Winston Churchill. There are no machines on this floor, only the hands of men and women working at a rhythm that hasn't changed for decades. Here, Elena, an apprentice, learns how to build a well-curved tip. Soon, she'll graduate to the upper floor. Another student speaks just enough English to say that he doesn't mind the sweatshop conditions.
Stuff job. Somebody had to do it. You like it? I like it.
These are clearly people who enjoy the things they make and are allowed to indulge them. The only rules are work hard and remember the revolution. Esperanza Garcia remembers she started here in 1967 when the revolution put out the call for willing hands to produce the cigars. Today, women outnumber men in the factories, and the cigar industry relies on them. Still, even after 30 years on the job, some of the women earn as little as $10 a month. This is the reader, or lector. His job is to stimulate the workers. Today, he reads the Communist Party paper from front to back. Tomorrow, it may be a best-selling novel. In fact, nobody pays much attention. The cigar industry is Cuba's pride, producing nearly 70 million units a year. Ironically, the most serious competition comes not from outside, but from Cuba's own black market in fake cigars. By some estimates, nearly 30% of Cuba's tobacco industry products, that's tobacco leaves, boxes, and labels, are diverted every year into the black market. This enormous industry costs the Cuban government millions of dollars a year, and police seem unable to stop it. The sellers of fake cigars are fearless. I was approached in a square crowded with tourists and police. Monte Cristo dos auténticos. The man promised authentic cigars at a third of the listed price. He said he had a room full just a block or two away. There are hundreds of con artists just like him. This is Speaker's Corner, Havana, and this is free speech. The men here are free to speak about baseball and music and boxing, and they do, loudly and all day long. But when I ask them about politics, they go quiet. The reason? A squad of special police in the background maintaining law and order. Just their being here is enough to discourage political dissent. There are people in Havana who will criticize the Castro regime, but they pay a price. One young man approached me in a public square and told me he supported the American embargo against Cuba. He was arrested and held by police for 2 days. Later, immigration authorities held me for 3 hours. It was a glimpse at the Cuba that most tourists never see. By Latin American standards, Cubans have a reasonable amount of freedom, but this is still a one-party state, and you don't knock the system. Cuban jails hold hundreds of people who have tried it. They are called prisoners of conscience. At the farmer's market, you see a new kind of free enterprise. But among the meat stalls, there's something missing. Where's the beef, I ask a butcher. He has no comment. He says he doesn't want to spend 30 years in jail. He's half joking, of course, but nobody's going to give you the real answer, that the state has a corner on the beef market and butchers hate the monopoly. And what about appetites of another kind? What are Cubans reading? Well, the local bookseller offers a second-hand volume on Hegel's philosophy. Or maybe you prefer Fidel's views on religion. Not much food here for the hungry mind. Carlos de Cosia of the Foreign Affairs Ministry says Cuba is an open society.
We want a clean, clear, honest system of democracy. It might not be the one suited for Canada. It might not be the one suited for other countries. We believe it's the one suited for Cuba.
Nelson Perez doesn't think so. Nelson tried to open a restaurant in his home, but the state made it so hard for him with its rules and regulations that Nelson is close to bankruptcy. But he says he'll go down fighting.
No matter how hard it gets here, I'll say one thing. I'll never, ever work for the government again. I couldn't stand it with some big guy on my butt all the time. I could never get used to working for the state again.
But the simple fact that a Cuban is mad enough to say this to a stranger may be a good sign. A sign that Cubans may soon be ready to demand the same rights, the same respect as that enjoyed by the tourists who keep this economy afloat. For Global News, this is Claude Adams in Havana.